Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MTGO Traders. My name is Taryn, and this is January 8th of Ravnica Allegiance preview season. So we have so many cards to go over to today, so I'm not going to get out the camera and bust out my face. So I'm just going to talk about the cards as quickly as I can, because we have a ton to talk about today. First up, I had a couple cards we missed yesterday, so let's go through them. We have Burn Bright here, a 3-mana instant. Creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. Pretty good in Draft and Sealed. A really nice kind of game-ending attack for you in Grul or in Rakdos. Could be used as a combat trick since it is an instant, so it can be used defensively as well. Since it is creatures you control, all of them get +2/+0, so pretty good at being able to block and, of course, attack in. Next up for us, we have Spiral Engineer. This is a 3-mana creature Vidalcan Wizard. You can tap it and add 1 green and 1 blue, which is super good. It's also a 1/1. I actually like this a lot in Draft and in Sealed, being able to ramp up in Simic. Might see some random kind of standard play, maybe some brew around play. It's not a merfolk or an elf, so I'm not going to see kind of play in those decks, but it is a wizard, so we may see some play. It may be a weird wizard list, but besides that, definitely really useful in Draft and Sealed. Next up, of course, we have Trollbred Guardian, a 5-mana 5/5 Troll Frog Warrior. That's already a lot to take in there. It's you can also pay 3 and adapt 2, and each creature you control, the +1/+1 counter on it has trample. So very nice for us, giving us the Zagana effect onto this card as well as an uncommon. So going to see a lot of play in Draft and in Sealed. A great bomb for you to get into is a 5/5 turning into a 7/7 for just 3 more mana. Since you already cast this for 5 mana, you definitely have the 3 mana the following turn. And each creature, it's not other creatures, so it means that this one also has trample as well. A 7/7 with trample is very good and can close out a lot of matches for you in Grul and in Simic. This is definitely a Simic card for sure, thanks to Adapt, but definitely going to see a lot of play in Grul, but not going to see any kind of play in Standard, just a little bit too expensive there. Skatewing Spy is a 4-mana 2/3 creature Vidalcan Rogue Mutant. So many random names here. You can pay 6, adapt 2, and each creature with a +1/+1 counter on it has flying. This is actually really powerful and really fun. I really wish this was a different creature type, maybe an elf or a merfolk. I know that that's so random to have that for flying, but this feels like it would go perfectly into a Simic merfolk list somewhere, or just a Simic list in general. In Draft and in Sealed, this card is amazing, can definitely set you off with all the +1/+1 counters going on your deck list since you are in Simic or in Grul, thanks to all the Riot counters as well. For Standard, this feels a bit too expensive for Standard play. However, it has such a good board-wide ability here, so it may see some play in Standard. I would love to brew around with this and see if it's actually can get there for sure. That 3 toughness is what kind of pushes me away from this card, since it can be, you know, of course, die to removal. Next up for us, we have United Stand. This is the first addendum card where it's kind of okay. It's a 3-mana instant. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. And addendum, if you cast a spell during your main phase, put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures and they gain vigilance until end of turn as well. So pretty good all around for this card. Very good at being able to defend, basically make a stand for us at instant speed. Well, instant speed is also make it stand as well. But if you cast this at sorcery speed, it gives you a +1/+1 counter and your creatures gain vigilance. So I really like that kind of combining these particular kind of effects into this one card here. Not too bad. My only issue, of course, is in Draft and Sealed, this is a rare, so you're very rarely going to get into that, pun intended there. In Draft and in Sealed, this is very good though. In Standard, I don't think it's good enough really to see that much play. It may be really powerful in a Boros list or a mono white kind of aggro list, a very low to the ground list, so we could see that. It could also see play in a blue-white tempo list in Standard as well. For Draft and Sealed, definitely going to see play in a Azorius list, definitely going to see play in an Orzhov list, of course, if you get into it, since it is a rare. Next, of course, we have Combined Guildmage, a 2-mana 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. There's a Merfolk. You can pay 2 and tap it. This turn, each creature you control enters a battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, which is quite good. You can also pay 2 with blue and tap it, move a +1/+1 counter from target creature you control onto another target creature you control. So quite good as well. The issue, of course, is that you have to pay 2 mana to do anything, and that's kind of hard to deal with most of the time because you need mana to cast other stuff as well. So if you're really high up on mana in the mid to late game in Simic and Draft and Seal, this card is a bomb. And just like all the other guild mages, they kind of just go off and they do really well. The only issue for me, of course, is guild mage, or this particular guild mage, needs to have +1/+1 counters on the field before it can do anything. If it doesn't, it's just a 2/2 bear, and that's kind of not that great. I really wish it could either create a +1/+1 counter and then move +1/+1 counters. Not being able to create anything really means this card doesn't do that much for us in Drafted and Sealed. Might see some play in Standard. I highly doubt it though, unless we have some really crazy +1/+1 counter deck going off. And so far, not really seeing that yet. Moving on up, we have Galloping Lizrog. This is a 5-mana 3/3 frog lizard. What is happening, Simic? It has Trample, and whenever it enters the battlefield, you may remove any number of +1/+1 counters among creatures you control. If you do, put twice that many +1/+1 counters on the Galloping Lizrog. This is quite good for you because it's a 5-mana 3/3 with Trample that can turn into a 6/6, 7/7, 8/8, and so on, if you're just willing to kind of give up some +1/+1 counters on your side of the field. So in Draft and Seal, this is definitely a bomb for you if you're in Simic. In Standard, this feels like it might be usable if we're in a really heavily +1/+1 counter meta. I'm not so sure. It is really expensive in a Simic list, so gotta wait and see on a Standard play, but this is definitely a card that would do a lot of really fun stuff for you in Commander, and of course, Draft and Sealed bomb all the way. Syndicate Guildmage, here's our Orzhov Guildmage here. It's a 2-mana 2/2 human cleric. You can pay 2 with a white and tap target creature with power 4 or greater. You can pay 5 with a black and tap it, and the Guildmage deals 2 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. Now here is a Guildmage I really like, being able to kind of slow down your opponent with a tap ability here, as well as just being able to ping your opponent's face or a planeswalker they control for 2 as well, is very good on a creature. It is, at the end of the day, just a 2/2 body if there's nothing to interact with on the battlefield, so similar to the other Guildmage. However, I do like this so much more since you can just straight up burn your opponent if you have the mana to do so. So a lot of good stuff there. We'll definitely see a lot of good Draft and Sealed play. Might even see some Standard play based on that drain ability. Next, of course, we have Orzhov Racketeers. This is a 5-mana 3/2 human rogue. Whenever Orzhov Racketeers deal combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. And of course, when this card dies, it has Afterlife 2, giving you 2 1/1 flyers. This is very good uncommon for you. Very good card for you in Orzhov in Draft and in Sealed. A 5-mana 3/2 is not really that great, but if it deals combat damage to your opponent, discards a card, which is amazing. And of course, if your opponent does trade with it, you get 2 1/1 flyers, which is probably going to be harder to deal with than a 3/2. So either way, Racketeers is doing a lot of good work for you, having a lot of ways to kind of come back from behind as well. I really enjoy Afterlife on the Orzhov. I think it's so simple, but it's so straightforward and just really good value for you. Not going to see any kind of Standard play though, sadly, since it's just a little too expensive. Ministrant of Obligation is a 3-mana 2/1 human cleric with Afterlife for 2. Wow, this is literally Lingering Souls on a body, and I am totally okay with that. Of course, Lingering Souls can be cast a second time from the graveyard, and this needs to just die and then creates 2 1/1 flyers. But a 3-mana 2/1 is not bad. I really wish this had the flying as well. Of course, that would be probably a little too good for an uncommon, but for Draft and Seal, this is probably your premier uncommon for Orzhov. For Standard, this is going to see a lot of play as well, being a great card to have on the field for sweepers, as well as just being able to deal with kind of trading anything if they have 2 toughness and creating 2 1/1 flyers. So very good in the mana curve for you in Draft and Sealed, very good in the mana curve for you in Standard. Ministrant of Obligation is going to see a ton of play. Archway Angel here is a 6-mana 3/4 flyer. When it enters a battlefield, you gain 2 life for each gate you control. So we have another Gate Matters deck, so our Gate Matters card. We might be able to have enough cards in actual Standard now to have a Gate Matters deck in Standard, but we'll have to see about that. All the cards aren't spoiled just yet. But a 6-mana 3/4 flyer in Draft and Sealed is not terrible. It's not great, but gaining 2 life for each gate you control could make this a lot better. Of course, that's very situational and means that you could just gain 2 life and get a 3/4 flyer for 6 mana. So not too in love with this card. I think if you need a top-end flyer in Orzhov or in Azorius in Draft and Seal, this is probably your guy. Too expensive though, not going to see any kind of Standard play. Next, of course, we have Winged Salamander. This is a 1 blue 1/1 flyer. This is also has Adapt for 4, and you have to pay 8 mana for this. However, this ability costs 1 colorless less for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. So a 1/1 flyer for 1 that can turn into a 5/5 flyer for 1. Holy cow, that's amazing. This is so good. This is probably the best and most pushed Simic card I've seen so far with Adapt on it, because the Adapt is, it can definitely, ebb and flow throughout the match. And that's the best part of this card here. So really like this in an Is-It kind of list in Standard, or maybe a blue-white tempo list in a Standard as well. Maybe even a mono blue tempo list. This is very good all around. A 1 mana 1/1 flyer is just supreme attacking creature, like evasion for you in Draft and Sealed, and turning this into a 5/5 flyer in the mid to late game if you can is just amazing, and you'll definitely be able to get this off really quickly as the match kind of drags on in Draft and Sealed, since there are, a lot of spells and instant sorceries going to the graveyard, since Draft and Sealed is a much slower format. So Winged Salamander, amazing card overall. This is ridiculous. And definitely putting a Curious Obsession on top of this and just going crazy in Standard. Next up for us, we have Cult Guildmage. Love the art on this one. This is a 2 mana 2/2. You can pay 4 and tap it. Target player discards a card. Active this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. You can also pay red and tap it. And Cult Guildmage deals 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. So again, we're continuing to see the 1 damage dealt to opponent or planeswalker kind of clause there. I like that a lot. I really wish it said any target, because we are getting a lot of them where it's very specific. It's not saying towards a creature, which I feel like we probably need some more removal, but we haven't seen the whole set yet, so you need to wait on that. But I do like this Guildmage a lot. Again, the art on this is hilarious. The 2/2 body, again, not that great, but we've seen worse. And of course, being able to discard an opponent's card from their hand is also very good for just 4 mana. So like this card overall, and of course it gets off that Spectacle ability for just 1 mana. That's just probably the lowest I've seen it so far. Next, of course, we have Immolation Shaman. This is a 2 mana 1/3 rare. It's a Vaishino Shaman. Whenever an opponent activates ability of an artifact, creature, or land that isn't a mana ability, Immolation Shaman deals 1 damage to that player. You can pay 5, and Immolation Shaman gets +3/+3 and gains Menace until end of turn. So it can become a 4/6 with Menace, which is very, very good. Really like this card a lot. I think this is quite powerful in Draft and Seal. Definitely a bomb for you. In Standard, I think this card is pretty powerful as well. Of course, we'll have to see what comes into play for the meta for Standard. I don't know about this seeing play for Modern, maybe. This could see some play in Modern, perhaps. I would definitely love to see the implications in the meta as well. But for Commander as well, this is also super fun. Of course, because it's going to be pinging your opponent or all of your opponents whenever they activate the abilities of artifact creatures or lands that aren't mana abilities. So that's really fun. I really love that. And yeah, can't wait to see this in action once it actually comes out. And this is probably one of the more powerful cards as far as rares for other formats like Standard, Modern, Commander. And definitely can be a bomb in Draft and Sealed. It's just a 2 mana 1/3 though, so it might just do nothing for you if you have it as a rare. So just keep that in mind. Next up for us, we have a split card. This is Audition and Audacity. Audition is a 2 hybrid mana instant. Target creature gets +3, -3 until end of turn. Wow, could be a pump spell or a removal spell, which is very good. And Audacity is a 6 mana instant. Destroy target non-basic land. Audacity deals 2 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. Not really a fan of this card, honestly. It is a rare. Can definitely be used as Audition as a good removal spell for a indestructible creature. I think that's probably the best part of this card. Probably should have just been that. Audacity is okay though, being able to destroy non-basic lands, so that could be, any kind of flip land from the opponent's side of the field, or any kind of land you just don't like on their side of the field as well. So that could be interesting. I think Audition though is the best part about this card. Being able to just 2 mana, -3 something is always super sweet, and good removal in Draft, Sealed, and of course even Standard. Next, of course, we have another split card. This is another rare, Warrant to Warden. 2 hybrid mana instant. Put target attacking or blocking creature on top of its owner's library. And Warden is a 5 mana sorcery. Create a 4/4 white and blue Sphinx creature token with flying and vigilance. This is very good. This is good for tempo in the early game and good for like late game bomb, of course, in the late game for Draft and Sealed, and maybe even Standard. I really like this. I think this is going to see quite a bit of play and brew around play in Standard. A lovely kind of ability to slow down your opponent in the early game with Draft and Sealed, and then close out the game with Warden with a 4/4 flyer and Vigilance. So very good card all around. Really love this one. I think this is quite powerful for Azorius for Draft and Sealed. Of course, it is rare, so you're not going to see it that much. Next up, we have the Senate Guildmage. This is the Azorius Guildmage for this set. This is a 2-mana 2/2. You can pay one and pay 1 white and tap it. You gain 2 life. You can pay 1 blue and tap it. Draw a card, then discard a card. Very simple, very straightforward, but very effective. I really love this card. I really wish it kind of had a tap down ability, but it looked like the Orzhov Guildmage got the tap down ability there, so not going to see that from this card, sadly. However, gaining 2 life and being able to draw some cards and cycle is exactly what you want to do in an Azorius deck list in Drafted and Sealed, and it's very cheap for just 1 mana each. So this is going to be drafted a lot if you're in Azorius, and might even see some standard play thanks to how cheap these abilities actually are. Moving on, we have Thrash to Threat. This is another split card for you. This is a 2 hybrid mana instant. Target creature you control deals combat damage, or deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. And then Threat is a 4 mana sorcery. Create a 4/4 red and green beast creature token with trample. Really like Thrash, and I really like Threat. This is kind of doing something similar to the Azorius here. The issue with me, though, is that Thrash is just an instant speed removal spell, which is very good. And then this Threat is, again, just creating a creature that's a threat to the board state with trample. So just basically the most Grul thing you can think of for only 4 mana, so much cheaper than the Azorius one. So really love this card. Think it's a powerhouse. I think it's a huge bomb of a spell in Draft and Sealed if you can get into it. And if you get into this in Standard, I really think this might be a really good brew round card for Grul as well, since of course it's a removal spell with a creature for the top end. So very good all around for that too. Next, of course, we have Mythic Bio-mancer, a 1 blue creature Merfolk Wizard Mutant. You can pay 2, adapt 1, and whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on the Mythic Bio-mancer, draw a card, then discard a card. I really like this in the Simic lists. I think the Simic Merfolk list in Standard will really use this card quite a bit, especially because we have so many Simic, or not Simic, but Merfolk cards in Standard right now. They can put +1/+1 counters on other things, and being able to draw extra cards by just putting counters on top of the Bio-mancer is really powerful, and turns this 1 mana 1/1 into a huge threat on the battlefield. So really think this is going to be a top tier player for us in Standard, and is a great card for you in Draft and Sealed as well, since it is a 1 mana 1/1 attacking in and can turn into a 2/2, and of course draw you cards in the process each time you get counters on top of it. So very good card all around. Of course it is rare, so we're not going to see it that much in Draft and Sealed. Awake the Erstwhile is a 5 mana sorcery. Each player discards all cards in their hand, then creates that many 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. This is interesting. It's each player, so that means that your opponent will also get some 2/2s, and that's interesting. Not really sure what to do about that. I think this will be really good for a Gogori Reanimation list in Standard, and if your opponent is out of cards in Draft and Sealed or in Standard as well, this could be really fun because, you have 5 cards, they have 0 cards because they're on Boros aggro. You just create a bunch of 2/2s that block, and that's really awesome for you. I don't really know what to make of this card. It feels very strange and kind of awkward to me. I think this card is going to be the most fun, though, in Commander, where you have a lot of players just creating a lot of 2/2 black zombies at the same time, and that's kind of hilarious. But besides that, I have a card that needs a really well-positioned board state and hand for the actual value for this card to kind of come out. It is a rare, so you're not going to see it that much in Draft and Sealed, but might see some brew around play in Standard, but I feel like it's probably going to see more play in Commander. Next up, we have Revival to Revenge. This is a 2 hybrid mana sorcery. Return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's very good. Revenge is a 6 mana sorcery. Double your life total. Target opponent loses half their life rounded up. Holy cow, this is amazing. That's so good. I really love this card a ton. I think this is super fun and kind of hilarious for an Orzhov list. It is quite expensive for you, but of course the 2 hybrid mana sorcery does replace or return a 3 mana or less creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, and that's exactly what you want to be doing in Orzhov, because you're going to have a lot of creatures going to the battlefield thanks to Afterlife. And Revenge, just makes the game a lot harder for your opponent. It makes your life total a lot bigger, and there's of course a lot smaller. So this is going to see a lot of Draft and Sealed play, going to see a lot of Commander play, and probably going to see some Standard play as well. Really can't wait to see what this is actually going to go into. Gale Drake is a 5 mana 3/3 creature Drake. Almost said human Drake. It's a creature Drake with flying, and other flying creatures you control get +1/+0. So we have several mono blue cards right now in the format that are really good at flying, and we also have some favorable wins enchantments in the standard format as well. I think Gildray could be seen in that particular deck list in standard. For now though, in like draft and sealed, a 5-mana 3/3 flyer that pumps other flyers is quite good, and I would definitely want to get into it if you have a lot of flyers in your Simic list or in your Azorius list. Either way, I think this card is really fun. Definitely a brew around play card for draft and sealed and for standard, and probably we'll see some play in Commander as well, since of course it has that really nice board wide pump ability for you. So pretty good on that all around. Next up for us, we have Arrester's Admonition. I think that's right. Admonition? I don't really know. It's a 3-mana instant. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Addendum, if you cast a spell during your main phase, draw a card. So it's a 3-mana bounce that draws you a card if you cast this at sorcery speed. This is okay. A little slow, again, just like all of these addendum cards. They basically just are slow on purpose. I think it's probably fine though. We do have like 3-mana bounce spells that already exist and are already 3 mana. So putting this onto a 3-mana bounce spell at instant speed that can be used as a card draw mechanic is quite good if you have the mana to do so. So we'd definitely like to see this kind of see more play in draft and sealed for sure. I don't think it's going to see play in standard, just a little too slow, but it is really interesting to kind of see how the addendum is being worked into this kind of card. Next up for us, we have the Azorius Skyguard, a 6-mana 3/3 creature human knight, flying first strike, and creatures your opponent control get -1, -0. This is your bomb. This is your giant bomb for Azorius in draft and in sealed. It is an Azorius 3/3 flying first striker that makes your creatures weaker, which means first strike is going to be better. Wow, this is really good, really powerful, and I think it's going to see a lot of play in draft and sealed. I'm not so sure about standard. This feels a little too expensive. It's really fun because of the -1, -0, but I do think it's just going to be seeing a lot of play in sealed and in draft. Next, of course, we have Ethereal Absolution. This is a 5-mana enchantment. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Creatures your opponent control get -1, -1. You can also pay 4, exile target card from an opponent's graveyard. If it's a creature card, you create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying, which is basically meaning it's a 2/2 flyer because of the enchantment itself. This card is really fun, and I really love this for the token matter decks in standard right now. As far as seeing play in draft and sealed, it feels a bit too expensive and a bit too slow, especially because you're not going to get into that many afterlife cards in draft and sealed most of the time. But if you do, and you do get into this card as well, wow, that's crazy. You just got into Magical Christmas Land. For standard though, this card is quite good, and I think it will see a lot of brew around play. And for Commander, this card will see a ton of play since it's doing a lot of good stuff over and over again. And of course, the static effects are just perfect there. Next up, we have Angel of Grace here, a 5-mana Mythic 5/4 flash flyer. And whenever it enters the battlefield, until end of turn, damage that would reduce your life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. You can also pay 6, exile Angel of Grace from your graveyard, and your life total becomes 10. Wow, this is really good tech or sideboard tech against a mono red or Boros aggro list in standard, and also just a very good attacker overall for you in draft and sealed as well. This is a huge bomb. Of course, it's a mythic, so you're not going to get into it that much in draft and sealed, but it's so powerful. And this is definitely a card you're going to see a lot of play in Commander as well. Right before you die, you of course can flash an Angel of Grace, have your life total reduced to 1, and then of course you can have it die, and then your life total becomes 10, which is awesome. Really good play around stuff. I love this. Just so much fun. Angel's Grace is a card that kind of does something that's similar, and I really like how I just put Angel of Grace in the title here. So super cute, very good card. Cannot wait to play with this and play around with it in standard. I think there's actually enough angels now to make just a full-on angel list in standard now. Spirit of the Spires is the last card we're going to look at today for Ravnica Allegiance. This is a 4-mana creature spirit flyer. Other creatures you control with flying get +0/+1. It's a 2/4 as well. This is actually quite good in draft and sealed. A 4-mana 2/4 flyer that actually makes other flyers, stronger with toughness is quite good, very powerful, and it will definitely see a lot of play in that particular format. I don't think it's going to see much play in standard. It feels a little too expensive, but besides that, going to see a ton of play in draft and sealed, and we're getting a little bit more spirits in the meta here for standard, so we might see what that Supreme Phantom does from these sets in standard right now. But that's going to do it for all of the cards for Ravnica Allegiance for today. I'm sure there will be some coming out or as soon as this video goes live. But we're about halfway through all the cards for the set. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What was your favorite card today? Angel of Grace was probably my favorite. I really love that card overall. I think it's really fun and just incredibly powerful for the meta right now. But of course, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Like the video if you like it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell icon to be notified when a new video on the channel goes live. My name is Taryn. This is MTGO Traders. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.